Hello, family, and thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of Healing What Should Have Never Been Broke podcast. And I'm your host, Cam. Today, we have another special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Cece Wilson, the same Cece Wilson from last week.
How does it feel to be back for another consecutive week with us?
I feel very blessed to be here. Thank you for offering me the opportunity to come and yap with you.
Of
Feels like
course,
a normal FaceTime call.
of course. So, today, guys, we actually have a very serious topic, or I should say, multiple serious topics to cover today, and it's gonna get really deep. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, just stick around and you'll see. So, would you like to start off?
Absolutely. The very first topic that we will be going over today will be the gender roles in society. And what I mean by that is basically, for example, girls are expected to play with Barbie dolls, and boys are expected to play with cars and Hot Wheels. And basically just dissecting how that translates into things that we teach our future generations and how we view ourselves as we age. So I know that a lot of people do subscribe to this notion of and it starts when you're a baby. It starts with the boys can't play with Barbie dolls or girls can't play with action figures and whatnot. And it goes all the way up until like basically we die, where it's like men are expected to pay for dates and pay the bills and everything. Women are expected to be homemakers and, expected to have those homes prepared. So
Yeah,
I just feel like with that, it sets a lot of unrealistic expectations in life because not every girl is going to like Barbie dolls and not every boy is going to like action figures or Hot Wheels and everything like that.
you're
So
right.
it kind of just like sets kids up for like honestly, if you think about it, these people that like grow up with their kids being like you can't, especially when they have boys, and I feel like it's more pushed upon boys where someone will see their boy playing with the Barbie and they're like you better put that down, or like they'll start like whooping them or stuff like that, and I'm like it's just a Barbie. And it stems from them being so scared of their child being quote unquote gay. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, like, even if your child does turn out as gay, that's still your child. Like, you know, they're not they're not committing a law. They're just simply choosing to love someone that's very similar to them, and that shouldn't be frowned upon. But even then, playing with Barbies does not translate to equally being gay. Playing with Barbies
But
and
you
everything.
also have to realize, too, that most older people are from a time where they were expected to stay home and they were expected to cook and clean while the husband worked all day, and they were expected to have this, that, and the third ready. Like, they're not, this is a new generation now, like women can have jobs and women are mostly head of the households now. It's a whole different type of situation now. So I feel like most older people don't really take that into account, that they're creating this toxic masculinity household without even meaning to, and it's just
Absolutely.
something that's just and it's like I can understand from a point of view, because I am a God fearing woman, of course, and I understand that aspect of it. But I feel like us as Christians, we can be very judgmental, and I feel like that's the reason why many people are turned away from us, because all we do is judge and criticize and make you feel bad about yourself when we need to love and accept you.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's kind of something that also ties into what I was saying is especially people who grow up with having households that are very Christian, very, faith leading, they subscribe to those unrealistic, ideals, and it it keeps on going from generation to generation to generation until one day there's that person that breaks free.
Mhm.
Now, my upbringing, I was never taught that, like, mainly because I was an only child, but I was never taught, like, okay, these are for girls and these are for boys, because one of my favorite toys growing up was I had a purple Hummer Hot Wheels, and I loved it. I played with it all the time. It was such a great toy for me to have. Yes, I had my Barbies as well, but my mother was never to the point where, oh, that's for boys, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
how I am with my daughter. Like, it's kind of crazy because she'll go from action figures to big pickup trucks to garbage trucks to bugs to, like, her interest is just everywhere. So it's not like she likes one specific thing or she's into one specific thing. And I feel like as a kid, it's natural to be curious,
Absolutely.
and
And
that's where it starts, as a
yeah.
kid, your curiosity and how you see the world.
And even with me who has studied, like, I went to school for like children education. So I, of course, had to take courses on um child development. You learn that kids learn through play. They do learn when you teach them, but the most effective way for children to learn is through play, specifically imaginative play. So, like, oh, they're learning math from playing grocery store and counting money, and they're learning like nurturing
Mhm.
from playing house and playing with baby dolls, which is another thing. Oh, and cooking from playing with kitchen sets, which was a
Mhm.
really big discussion that was held on Facebook, like maybe a year or two ago, and there was a lot of people that I actually ended up unfriending because they were like, I would never give my son a kitchen. And that's why you men grow up. Sorry, that was very general. But that's why some men
Yes, some
grow up. Yeah, some men grow up and they don't know how to make a grilled cheese sandwich because they did not have that kitchen to play with, or they grow up and they don't learn,
basic
like,
needs like laundry and, yeah, cleaning.
right. Or even as far as like nurturing, and they don't learn how to nurture
Right.
for like children and stuff because they don't have those Barbie dolls. Like
And those
for
core
women,
memories, yeah.
yeah, for women we learn, we're more natural nurturers. So even sometimes, like, I feel like I don't have kids. I never have given birth. I never have had a child, but I will sometimes have like more instinctive nurturing because it's an instinct. Like
Mhm.
you're watching someone's, I'll have my nieces and nephews all the time, and I'll be like, okay, well, come here, I can attend to them when they're hurt. Like I snap into that mode.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that like I'm perfect at it, 'cause like I said, I don't have kids, but
Even
it comes.
parents aren't perfect at it. It's just
Yeah,
something. It's just a how can I say this?
it's
It's an
more natural and
unrealistic stigma that's put on some mothers that we know everything and parenting is perfect, and it's just a society that we live in that you're just ridiculed for every little mistake, and it's just like nobody is perfect, as my mother always says. You aren't giving a book to be a parent, you're not there. Everything is not written down for you to get it right. Like, you're
absolutely.
gonna make mistakes. It's just how you handle those mistakes.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially growing up, we learn from the things that our parents did to us, and then when we decide to have kids, we choose what things worked for us and
Mhm.
what things didn't work for us, and then we
Definitely.
change those things. And I know that you can definitely attest to that, especially being a parent.
Definitely.
Um, but even as someone who's not a parent, I can say, okay, well, I just necessarily didn't like the way that I was treated in this aspect. And then I can think to myself, especially having that knowledge of child development and understanding
Mhm.
how children work, I can say, okay, when I decide to have kids, this is how I'll address certain situations, and this is how I think that they will be more effective going forward. Um, but I mean, it's always easier said than done, and I won't know for sure until I decide to have kids.
Mhm.
But it's good to, like, I feel like it's good to think about those types of things, especially because if you're someone that wants to have kids or you're someone, I feel like when you have kids, you have to start thinking about your traumas. So
Right.
that way you're not passing down your traumas and your fears onto
Definitely.
your child.
Definitely.
So I like that I'm taking the time to figure out myself and figure out how I can change and be a better person in order to, one day bring little people into the world so
Hmm.
they can be change makers. They can be the change that I want to see in the world. And even if I'm not around for it, I know that that, they're doing good things. They're doing big things. And that's all I
Hmm.
want for my future hypothetical children. So,
I totally get that. And I was actually watching a sermon. Guys, I'm not gonna lie. My pastor, well, I don't live in Atlanta, but he's my pastor by Bedside Baptist, okay? The church is 2819, Philip Anthony Mitchell. He is a great pastor, and I feel like he's one of those pastors that tells you like it is, and he's not afraid of backlash, and he's gonna let you know. He's gonna clock your tea. He clocks my tea all the time, and I just be like, whoa. Anyway, point being is the sermon that he preached on that I saw, he was basically talking about like how you raise your children now is going to be the legacy that they keep around. This is what people are going to remember you for. And
absolutely.
yeah, it's all in how you decide to raise your children. And it's like he was talking about how children are raised from kinship and something else. I can't really think about a child. But basically, you know, you just gotta know when you know whose you are and you know who you are, you act a whole different way. And that's all about learning yourself. Because when you know who you are, there is nothing that can stop you.
Absolutely. And that's going back into like with the gender roles and everything,
Hmm.
you learn, like I was saying, you learn from, children learn from playing and then they learn different things and then they end up, taking these things and tweaking them and um
Applying them to real world circumstances.
situations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, for example, I'll just do two examples. You have a child that, you know, is very they grew up with very like I'll say more liberal parents and um they grow up having the whatever toys they want or whatever toys they can get that are
Hmm.
available, which also does come with some type of privilege that I don't want to get into right now because you know
We might
but
as well. Might as well.
well, I was just gonna say like I won't lie, having access to toys and other things when you're a child does come with privilege and sometimes maybe all that family can afford is, they can't get the newest Barbie, so they have to get the hand-me-downs.
Hmm.
They can't get, so that um the amount of toys available that, children have access to, that just goes into
And that's another
that.
thing how society just has this model of what every family should be and what every mother should be and what every father should be and what the
Absolutely.
income should be. And I just feel like social media and just in general just society has put on these labels that are so hard to work up to. And it's like when you don't feel like you're measuring up to those certain standards, then you get what is the word? I'm blanking right now.
Like maybe you get a little like, discouraged.
That too, but you just feel like ah, what's the word?
I
We're
can't
gonna
think
spin
of.
the block on that. But you know what?
Yeah.
When I think about it, it's just gonna pop up in my head. I'm like, yeah. But
That word.
I feel like
But
social media definitely does determine like how you see yourself and how you see what you're doing. And do you know what they say? Comparison is the thief of joy.
exactly, exactly.
And I feel like that's the problem with this generation that we're so, oh, we're gonna post this on social media and we're gonna see how many likes this is, and they measure success with popularity. And We are grown, okay? I do not care who likes me and who don't. No, they didn't like Jesus, and Jesus was the most perfect man on earth. So why should I care if you like me? And I feel like this generation is so caught up on who likes who, and they miss the whole purpose of life. Like,
Yeah. But but yeah, back to my example.
yeah, we definitely just went off on a tangent.
Yeah, I mean, but that happens. That's so you have this child that has all the toys they want. They grow up and they're more likely to, accomplish goals and dreams that they might not have otherwise. For
Hmm.
example, they're more likely to lean into unorthodox career choices. Like, a lot of women tend to be teachers, but if you're a young boy and you've grown up playing school or whatever, and you have like all the things you need to play
Right,
school or whatever the case may be, you might grow up and decide, oh, I want to be a teacher, and that's fine because a lot of, if not almost every career can be done by. Now there is stigma behind that, but I personally feel like a lot of careers can be done by everyone.
for sure.
It doesn't have to be like gender specific, but there are jobs that are gender dominated, like teaching, nursing, stuff like that, and
Hmm.
men typically tend to be doctors. But yeah, and then versus, that the other example, which is a little boy that um, he's grown up, he's told that, oh, that's for girls. You can't play with that. You can't play with that. Oh, and parents, because they're trying to not project their fears of gayness, which, by the way, why are you afraid of your child being gay? Because, like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with loving who you want to love. And but anyway, um he's growing up and he's either going to be, he's not going to have all the stuff that he wants. He's either going to be, you know, very insecure with his sexual orientation,
Hmm.
and, be either very closeted gay or be very like straight, or be straight but very insecure in his sexuality to the point
Hmm.
where, it's, oh, that's gay, that's gay, that's gay, and it's like, oh, am I gay for eating a banana? Or am I gay for, like, I've literally seen people, like, how you just, like, bite into a banana? I've seen people, like, break off bananas and eat them just because they don't want to be
They be
portrayed as
shaking them. They be
gay.
shaking them in their hand like Skittles.
A banana? I've never seen anybody shake a banana.
They break it off, put it in their hand, and pop it in their mouth like a Skittle.
Oh, like that. I thought you were, like, shaking them. I'm like, how do you shake a banana? You make a banana smoothie? But Lord. But yeah, I just really do feel as if, as a society, I feel like we should, um, because the kids are the future. I feel like we shouldn't,
Limit
diminish, or
them.
we shouldn't thank you. We shouldn't limit them
You see
on
how that works? You search for a word, and I give you that word. Yeah, yeah. Take them out.
Oh goodness. But I feel like we shouldn't limit our children. And there are gonna people that disagree with me, but I want you, if you do disagree with me, I want you to think about why you truly disagree with me. And if your answer is because it's wrong or it's gay, I want you to do some deeper digging into that. And actually, I did drop my social medias in the last episode, but I can drop them at the end of this episode too. If you'd like to DM me and have this discussion, we can, because I really want to dissuade people from thinking that, you
Also,
know,
I actually feel like this generation is also different because us as women, we are not the same women that were brought up years ago. This
oh,
generation is
absolutely.
completely different. I'm not gonna lie, it's cut different. We got different things like OnlyFans and people be wearing lingerie outside. Baby, it's just different. It's just different. We can't expect our men to want to cater and take care of us, and we can't even respect them enough to cover ourselves
On
up.
some Well,
It's like the era. I understand. They say if you have a bad girl, you gotta let her be bad. But it's like a certain point where you gotta respect yourself too. Like if everybody's seen it, nobody want it. Okay.
yeah, and I do. I'm more of a type of. I can see where you're coming from with that. I personally, okay, it's kind of hard because I don't wear lingerie in public, of
Yeah, but you
course.
be dressing
But
like a. I know. I'm targeting you too. You know, everybody can catch strays. I'm not one of them people that if the shoe fit, it's not. Yeah, it's yours too. It's yours
well, okay,
too.
I don't.
Put it on,
I
wear it.
whenever
Yep.
whatever I wear, my body parts are not my intimate parts are not easily visible. Do I wear clothing that does reveal a lot of skin? Absolutely. But I also do, I do it enough to where, I do leave something for the imagination,
Right.
It's not all out there. But even if there is someone, I'm the type of person where I'm like, okay, I personally wouldn't wear that, and maybe it does look a little bit of a hot mess, but I'm just gonna, keep it to myself because sometimes people aren't,
That's
aware
true, and
that
I understand that. But you know, at the same time, that's what I mean. Like we're different than our grandparents were, and it's just a different culture now. Like you can
yeah.
literally there. We have apps like Tinder, and we have all these hookup apps. We're in the hookup culture. Like I feel like this generation isn't really in the
Mhm. But
in the mood for dating and actually getting to know people. Like we're just so caught up on hookups and sneaky links, and we
but
don't
I
really take the time
do
to learn people.
I do think that also stems from their because if you think about it back in the day, they're like relationships don't last like they used to, but literally it was like if you got divorced, it was like it was the end of the world. And you people were staying in relationships because they had no women couldn't work, so they had no money to like really go anywhere. Their husbands were beating on them and they felt like they had no choice but to just, put up with it.
Yeah,
And I feel like we're finally realizing that like with women, we have choices, we can stay, we can go, we can do whatever we want. Um, and, I think when we as people get over things, it does take a few generations. So like maybe our parents more so, they're not a part of that generation per se that has to stay, but they grew up, their family members grew up with, I mean, their like parents and stuff were the ones that felt like they had to stay in a
but it's not
marriage.
even that though. Like this is a hot girl culture. Okay, like you cannot say that times have not drastically changed as far as how us women, especially specifically black women, respect ourselves. Like we were just talking about like how baddies they literally get paid to humiliate themselves on live TV. Like the culture is different.
It is, but like I said, I'm the one that I'm more of like a
The
free
culture is
thinker.
different.
I wouldn't call myself like I don't think my views are very conservative as in like I don't think that like when I see women like that, I'm like, okay, girl, you do you. Like I feel like that's just being kind of like a girl's girl. I'm like, I'm listening and I might judge a little
Of
bit, but
course, I listen and I don't judge, but I'm just saying like this is
what
just
you're
a
judging.
different gener. Okay, I might be judging, but still, listen, this is a different generation. They just cut different, y'all. They cut different, y'all. Cut different.
I think you just have a little outdated views. Just a
I
little bit.
could, it could be because I also said that I am a God fearing woman and I also look at the world through a different pair of eyes, and that could be true, but I try to be as open as possible. But
And that
at the
also
same
comes from me
time,
like having that experience of going to school, like, going away to school and then like being basically in the middle of nowhere and seeing how people operate where they don't have, parental guidance. It's kind of like,
mhm.
oh. So I do see where you're coming from because some people act like they don't have common
But it's not even
sense.
that. It's the fact of the self of love. Oh my gosh, I just
The lack of
it's
self-love,
the lack of self respect is what I'm getting at.
which ties into lack of self-love
It
as
definitely
well,
does. Like
which
you know
ties
how
back
they
into
say.
what you said about the social media,
Yeah, they
the
say you
comparison.
could definitely tell the difference between a person that does not have a father, and I'm not gonna lie to you, you can,
You definitely
you definitely can. I
can.
can honestly say that. my father was not in my life very long, but for the time he was in my life, like the standards is different. Like a man can't even approach me. Like, are you? If you don't open my door, first of all, let me tell you, my dad opened my door. Okay, I never had to touch a gas tank, never had to pay for anything, never had to do anything, and that was just the bare minimum. But I feel like these females just accept below the bare minimum, so these men feel like they could do whatever they want, and when they get another woman, they feel like we're doing too much, but in reality, we're requesting the bare minimum.
But you know what that ties into? Us getting we're getting out of those dang it, I just had it. I just had it.
Oh yeah,
Oh, I was gonna say the fatherless activity from men as well.
that is also true. These men also, I understand, you know, a man, it goes both ways. A man is also supposed to teach his son these different principles as well. I understand that. And
And
like,
then
like it's
it's not even that
different.
it's not even that it's the man's fault per se, because you want to know why? It's a generational thing, going back to
Mm-hmm.
what I was saying about the
Mm-hmm.
generation.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have they don't have like, basically what is happening is, um like back in the 80s, there was a whole big thing about, men, and
Oh,
they
they,
made it.
they was doing coke in the 80s. Pick the
Oh,
90s or something. The 90s. I feel like the 90s
okay.
good era of love. You feel me? It was love and basketball. You know, we
Well,
had
no, I was
good
gonna
black
say,
love.
like the 80s and the 70s and all that, they were, they made it seem like, oh, black men are leaving the families
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. But it really was just all men. Like, not all men, but like all different. It wasn't just black men, is what I would say, were leaving families. And even today, like,
But you
you
know,
know,
the government counts on black men leaving the family because you know why? It leaves the woman vulnerable, and more than likely, the woman has kids and she cannot provide for herself. So then she has to get on government assistance, and she's another statistic, and that just
hmm
makes them look even better. So they're banking on the black men to leave. They're banking on the
absolutely.
black men to be in the streets. Like, if you think about it, where do all these drugs and guns come from? They come from the government. They put them into our streets and pollute our streets to get our men.
hmm And
So
they
it
end
goes
up,
even deeper than we can even imagine. Like, they are banking on this to happen. They're banking on black people to stay divided. Like,
I was talking about this with my mom earlier, and I was saying how, I lost it. But I was, no, yeah. We were talking something similar about this, and I said I was going to save it for the podcast. But because I'm like, she wasn't listening anyway, and I was like, let me just get off my soapbox real quick because
Michelle,
I can.
like, it gets way deeper. And I'll be trying to tell people, like, listen, first off, you think back to, like, I don't want to say a time, but when you think back to Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers, and you see how all these black groups were created to help the black people.
And then they turn around and they demonize them enough to now they're, a lot of gangs
Yes, they started off as ways to help black
help the community.
people. Exactly.
And now in Chicago, it's like, oh, this gang, they go and they disrespect each other. Like, oh, I went on your block and I bent your street sign. Now, it's like a game of tag. Haha, you can't get me. And then they shoot each other. And it's like, it's not like that's not what your forefathers fought for.
Right, and like if you even looking at the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, it gave me a lot of insight on how the government pins us against each other. Because like in one of the, it was basically a black man, and he basically got arrested, and he was like, "Listen, I'll let you get off, but you got to spy on Fred Hampton for me." And to do all that, he did all that just out of jail, and then he ended up like the government felt like because we were united and we were actually getting stuff done and being proactive and actually learning that we're more than just what they think we are. And when
hmm
black people start to use their minds instead of their fists or their weapons, then they get scared because it's like we're actually waking up, so they deem us a threat, and that's basically why Fred Hampton got killed, because they deemed him a threat because he was waking up and not conforming to their rules.
hmm I actually have not seen Judas and the Black Messiah,
You
so
need
that
to. You need to. You need to.
does it come in book form? I've really just been trying to read
I
more
think it
books.
will. I think it does. I think it does. But it's definitely a great movie to watch. Like, My daughter, I try to instill this in her at a young age that don't let society make you feel like you should act a certain way just because you're black. You can be a smart, black, successful woman, and you don't have to be like how they think you should be. Like, like I was saying, like baddies, how women are, they feel like they should be subjected to acting like that to get more attention, but you don't have to. You don't have
And then
to. You don't have
to
to be
that
half
she
naked to get attention.
exactly. But then to that
You
she'll
don't have
reply,
to get
"Mommy, I haven't eat all day."
it. Yeah, that's something. But I'm just, and it starts now. It starts now. Like, I want her to know that just because society feels like you should be a certain way, you don't have to be that way. You can be a
Exactly.
successful black woman, and you can command attention of a room with all your clothes on. Like, it starts at this age right now. Like,
I agree.
and I feel like I
And
keep going to the whole half naked thing. And I'm sorry if I offend y'all, but listen, us as black women, we need to do better. Okay, we need to have more self respect. We need to level up. Okay, level up.
like I said though, I am just the type of person where I'm more like, okay, you know, but I can see where you're coming from, and I'm not gonna be like, oh, you're a prude because, you respect yourself. And, you know, not saying that I don't respect myself, that's just how, like,
I
I
understand.
kind of feel more, it's a liberating feeling to, like, play around with different fashion things, and, and
It is
even
liberating,
sometimes.
but at the same time, we have to take into account that our fat. I don't even know how to say it. You only get one first impression of somebody, and that has a lot of weight into how the rest of your relationship is gonna go. Let me just say it that way. You never
Absolutely.
know who you're gonna meet. You never know. So
But I
you
want them to
you
look at
want
me and
to,
say, when I first met you, your outfit was super cunty, and I want to, and I'm gonna be like, girl, yeah.
but look at it from a business point of view. Like, you
Oh, don't get me
cannot
wrong.
be
When it's time,
professional.
when
But
it's
I'm just saying
time.
though, you never know who you're gonna meet. You never know who you're gonna run into. Is
Oh,
the
and
point
that's
I'm making.
true, and
You
that's true.
never
I do
know.
understand that.
So you're out
But
here half naked and doing all this, and you could meet the person that could change the rest of your life, and they overlooked you because of how you present yourself. How you present yourself is a very important factor on if somebody is gonna do business with you or not.
that's true. But I still want them to be like, girl, that you might have been underdressed, but that outfit was too cunty, and I'm gonna be like,
Girl,
yeah.
in a real business world, nobody's gonna say that. They're gonna be like, okay, so you can't respect yourself and represent yourself. So how can you represent my company?
Well, I mean, when it's time for me to dress like that, absolutely. And I'm not saying I'm just dressed all willy-nilly, like I make it look good.
I understand. I'm not talking about you necessarily. I'm talking about, you see these people on social media and they literally be wearing lingerie outside. Like, they literally be half naked. Like,
Well, some of them do get sponsored. I'm not gonna lie. Some of them do get like, for example, Rihanna, they get sponsored.
however, Rihanna
Especially
is a
when you
whole
see.
different person now than she was when she first got scouted.
No, but what I mean is, like, okay, you see, yeah, some people do wear lingerie, but some people, like, I'm thinking more of who I follow on Instagram, and they're mainly like models and, influencers, and they get, you know, unless you're just talking about, like,
But
you
that's off
know,
sex appeal though. They get paid to represent sex appeal, and that's another thing in this culture. It represents the hookup culture. I feel like that's another reason why these men just be out here, because these society, it's just a way of that's just how society is put out there. That's another example.
no, I mean, okay, with that, what do you mean by that?
I feel like Okay, yeah, I understand that you're a model and I understand you get paid for that, but you know, men see that and they expect every woman to look like that or to have this certain body type or to dress like this or you know what I mean?
Well, then that's their problem for having unrealistic
But
expectations.
I'm saying though, like society, it puts this huge amount of pressure on you to be like the next person, and if you're not, then it's just crazy.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm like picking at this. I got a fairy knot in one of my locks, but there we go. I do see where you're
Oh my
coming.
god.
Sorry, I do see where you're coming from with that though, because especially, you know, like you were saying earlier, that about the comparison. Because I deal with that sometimes too. I'm like, oh wow, her body's real tea, and then I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'm like, wow, my body used to look like that,
And then half
and
these people, half these models, then got BBL tummy tucks. It's not even natural. I feel like we are moving. That's another thing. That's another thing. Ah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
really, really back in.
I'm trying. I'm trying. You know, it's so hard when you're so passionate about something, but you can't put into words what you're thinking. It's like extremely upsetting.
It's upsetting me and my homegirl.
It really is. But it's like, then you gotta think, like, these are what our younger women are looking at and thinking about. And I feel like we have gotten away from self love so much.
And I mean
So,
that kind of has diminished as well with social media, with the constantly comparing. Even
yeah,
like I'll go on Shein and I'll be like, oh, this outfit is so cute, and then I'll get it, and then I try it on and I'm like, oh,
the body
like the
didn't come.
body sold separate, the body
Yeah,
sold separately.
like it's everywhere. It's everywhere. I feel like this society, what enforces body dysmorphia. There we go. There we
Yeah,
go.
definitely.
There we
But
go. That's the word.
dare I say that it's also like a motivator almost, because I'll be like, okay, now I know I need to like I'll be slacking in the gym, and then I'm like, okay, I need my body to look like that. Like it's bad. Yeah, I'm not saying it's good. Like it's very toxic, but also it is in a way motivating as well. But also that goes into having body dysmorphia, of course, and
But you
that's
also have to love yourself no matter what stage you're in. Because even if you do get this body and you pay for this surgery, if you don't love yourself, all that is a waste. Like, you shouldn't have to compare yourself and be like, oh, yeah, if I look like this, I'm going to feel like this. Like, no, it comes from within. And
I
if
mean,
you don't love yourself, nothing you do is going to change that. Like,
I feel like you can love yourself, but also want better for yourself.
you
You know what
can.
I mean?
I'm not saying that. Of course, you can love yourself and want better for yourself, but it comes to a point where it gets so toxic where you can't even look at yourself until this happens, and it forms unhealthy habits and unhealthy traits.
Yeah, okay, now, yeah, I get it. I do get it.
You
But I,
know, yeah, there's a good side to that, but you also have to look at the negative side of that too. And this is what our young girls, our young women are looking at, you know?
hmm which, I mean, even with like, I remember in the news in the early 2000s, everyone was like literally upset because they're like, oh, Bratz dolls and Barbie dolls are giving unrealistic expectations to children. And then in my mind, like having a child mind, I'm like, you know, I personally never felt, I wanted the body of a Bratz doll because they had big heads and big lips and everything. And I'm like, now, how is that, how is that real? But I guess there was that very few minority of children that were like, I want to be shaped like a Bratz doll. And then it's like, whatever.
It's the connotation of a Coca-Cola body type situation, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where it stems from, man. Then you get into, oh, you know, when stuff is a trend, they make you feel bad for not having that specific thing. Like,
You get
when
FOMO.
big lips were in, and they had the freaking shot glass challenge, and you know,
Oh, I never had to participate in that because my lips were like, even I feel like
that's not
lip
the point. The point
plumper.
being is we feel like we need to change and conform ourselves to fit into society's standards, and that is very toxic.
I do feel like even now, like I feel like lip filler, I mean not lip filler, lip plumper became really like popularized around that time. And to this day, it is still
Hmm.
pretty popular. And I have tried it on before because I'm like, well, I don't have any lip gloss. Let me put on this lip plumper.
Yeah, you regret
Bad
that, huh?
idea. Bad idea. And then I'm like, why do I even have it in my possession? Because I don't need lip plumper because, you know, I have luscious lips.
But it's just
But
something as simple as that that can just transpire into something completely different. It's like
mhm,
it's just so easy to look at yourself and be like, okay, I don't like this. I'm gonna change this, or I'm gonna change that, or I'm gonna change that. It's okay to want better for yourself, but when it gets to a point where you change everything about yourself, that's not healthy.
that's yeah.
That's
You
not
like
healthy.
and I feel like a lot of people have gotten into the idea of